Welcome back, ladies, gentlemen, and anybody else who is joining us this evening. This is, of course, the Sheff United Way prediction show, where we are predicting every game from this Premier League season. And of course, once again, we introduced him last week. We're continuing the titanic battle that we've got. It's the Sheff United Way against Blades Ramble. It's, of course, Jimmy from the Ramble who is joining me. How are you doing, my friend?
I'm good, thank you, mate. I'm not too happy with last week's results, if I'm honest, and I don't just mean the Blades result. But, you know, it's a marathon, not a sprint, mate, isn't it?
It is. And anybody who followed us for this last season, anybody who went through the journey with us in the Championship will have seen that I did go on a fantastic run, got myself well ahead and bottled it like you've never seen towards the end of the season. So I wouldn't worry too much. So, of course, we're talking about last week's results. I have got a slightly early lead, 9 points for me, very much helped by my perfect score in the City game on the Friday night. 6 points for yourself. Jimmy, which ones are you kicking yourself over where you think, oh, could have got that one a little bit better?
I think I went a little bit too heart over head with the Palace game, if I'm honest. Yeah. That was my first one that I thought, who saw that Newcastle result coming, by the way?
I went so big.
On that. I went... did.
Oh, I know. And that's a spoiler alert because the viewers' king, the absolute viewers' king, once again, he was fantastic last season where he smashed through the Championship. He's come to the Premier League and he has conquered once again. Pete Day was our champion for game week 1. A massive 18 points. I mean, my word. What a start that is.
How do you get 18 points on game week 1? It's the most random week of them all. I know. Well done, Pete. Fair play to you, mate. But wow.
Outstanding work. I should shout out a couple of others because there was a couple of other pretty good scores. And there, M. Clinton, another familiar face for those who were with us last season, got 15 points. And Shaz, the Queen herself, got 14 points to ease us into the new season. So fantastic work from our viewers and great to see some of those familiar faces joining us again. So, Jimmy, shall we get into it? Because it's the biggest game of the weekend up first. The most important one, the one we all care about. Nottingham Forest versus Sheffield United. I have let my heart rule my head completely. But you've gone for a draw, Jimmy, and talk me through why.
I have, mate. And I've gone for a draw because, look, we were very short for the Palace game. We knew we were massively undercooked. I'm feeling a little bit more confident in terms of the bodies that we've got in. Gus Hamer is an unbelievable signing for us. Absolutely fantastic. Really pleased with him. I'm expecting Hamer to play. I'm expecting Sousa to start. I think we're going to be a lot stronger. I just still think we're lacking that cutting edge up front. And I think that's widely acknowledged by the fan base. But we're not quite there yet, are we? We're better, but we're not quite there. So I couldn't face saying that Forest were going to turn us over. And I still think this is a game we can get something from. I'm not quite as confident as your good self, but we'll see. We'll see. One apiece, I think, and it's going to be Gibbs White in it. Let's be right. He's going to be one to score for Forest. It's written, I think.
Yeah, I do agree. Our comments are a little bit split. We've had a 1-0 Forest, a 1-0 United, and a 2-1-2 Forest. It's a difficult one for me. And like you say, I think I have let my head rule my heart just a little bit. So,
I hope you're right, mate. Obviously. I hope you're right.
So do I. So do I. Please to God. Right. So second game of the weekend, Fulham Brentford. Now, a really fun quirk of the stats for you on this one, Jimmy. The last 3 games against Fulham and Brentford have ended 3-2 to the home team, which of course has really weighed on my mind when I've predicted a 0-0 board draw. I've obviously, taken those stats and gone, I tell you what this game needs. It needs a 0-0. What are you thinking? You quite confident for Brentford?
A little bit, yeah. I think Brentford are they're a good side. I still think they're underrated by a lot of people. Obviously, they've no Ivan Toney, but I mean the reason I think I pitched a 0-0 for Everton Fulham last week, and Fulham just squeaked it. But the reason I pitched the 0-0 was I didn't think Mitrovic would play.
Yeah,
he's now rumoured to be almost gone to Saudi, so I would doubt that he'll play in this game, which makes me think. Oh, thank you, Ryan. Much appreciated, pal. Blade Ramble. But I don't think he'll play this time. So I think Brentford edge it, personally. I think they've got too much for Fulham without Mitrovic.
Yeah, I think that's the risk for me. That's why I'm going for a bagel both ways, really. I think it's really difficult, particularly if Fulham do lose Mitrovic. It's hard to see where their goals come in through the squad. Difficult one, though. Up next, it's not a difficult
people in glass houses, Ollie. Come on. Where's Fulham goals coming from?
Tell me about it. I mean, if anybody can complain that there's no goals in the team, it's United. But there's certainly goals, I think, in the Liverpool team. So I've done what I do. I've done a deep dive into this one. Last 15 games between these two teams, Bournemouth have won 2 and they've lost 12. And that's not a fantastic record for anybody to have. Of course, Brentford did win the most recent game. They beat them 1-0 at the Vitality last season, but their record at Anfield is honestly absolutely atrocious. They've conceded 19, they've scored 3, and they've only taken 1 point. So I think this is going to be a comfortable home win. But what you've got to remember is that, to me, this is massive progress for Brentford because they got done 9-0 at Anfield last season. So I think they're doing better.
You mean Bournemouth, don't you?
I, of course, do mean Bournemouth, and I'm getting carried away with myself.
It's all right, mate. It's all right. Well, I think I agree with you. I think Liverpool are too strong for Bournemouth, but I think there's a little bit of disrespect on Bournemouth's name.
Yeah.
The results you mentioned, obviously, there's been a massive gulf in class between the two sides over the last 15 years, and there still is a gulf. But I think Bournemouth are creeping up towards that sort of Brentford, Brighton level. Not Brighton particularly, but certainly a Brentford level where they're investing in squad, new ownership, got a bit of money behind them now, making some shrewd signings. So I think they'll get beat here at Anfield, but I don't think they'll embarrass themselves. I don't think it'll be like a 4-zip. I think it might be just a 3-1 where Liverpool sort of get the season underway properly, perhaps.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I think Bournemouth are a much improved side. And I think, I'll be honest, I will own my own biasness. I do have something against Bournemouth, and I don't know what it is. I referenced it last week. I've referenced it again this week, and I just seem to come in to slag Bournemouth off. So I apologise to any Bournemouth fans we've got in chat. I will give you more respect in future weeks, just not when you're going to Anfield. But I'm not going to give many teams respect when they go to Anfield, so don't take it personally. It's difficult for me on this next one because I've taken this one personally because I thought Wolves were going to be dreadful. I thought Wolves were really going to have a terrible start to the season. I thought there were no goals in the squad. I thought they were really struggling after Lopetegui. I've embarrassed myself twice. But after he moved on. Lopetegui. Thank you very much for that one. Right. I thought they were going to be a mess, but they were pretty good on Monday night. You know, they were absolutely robbed of a point with that just nonsensical non-penalty. Like, I just don't get it. I still think there's a lack of goals, but I am expecting them to be better than I thought.
I agree, mate. I agree. I tweeted out on Monday night when they played, the most disappointing thing of the night, there's 2 things that were disappointing about that night. Wolves are a lot better than we thought, which is bad news for the Blades because we were banking on them being down there with us. And they still might be, but I think they're better than us. And second one, we're Don Goodman on commentary for Prem. No, please. Anyway, back to the game. I do think they were better than we thought they were going to be. I don't think there's a lot of goals in the team, but I thought they were the better team for large parts of that game on Monday. And you're absolutely right, they were robbed. I still think Brighton are a class above. I think Brighton will go well again this year. They've just had a load of money pumped into them with Caicedo going, and I think they'll strengthen again before window shuts. But Evan Ferguson and all these sort of players that they pluck out of nowhere, I just think they're going to have too much for Wolves. So 2-0 Brighton.
Yeah, I can see it. I think certainly if you ask me who do I think is going to be a better team this season, I would be backing Brighton. But I think I've been spooked by Monday night, and a good performance at Old Trafford seems to have meant that I'm now completely overestimating what Wolves have got to offer for the season. And they'll hopefully show me that I'm wrong, that they are going to be down there, and it's going to be one less team for United to be trying to defeat at the end. Now, up next, we have got Tottenham versus Manchester United. But before we come to our score predictions, this game is one of Circle's 5 match millions. Now, for those who joined us last week, I explained that this is a really simple game where you can get involved. What they do is they name 5 games for that game week. This week, it's Spurs Man United, Man City Newcastle, Villa Everton, West Ham Chelsea, and Crystal Palace versus Arsenal. And what you have to do is select 5 numbers, and the key moments in the game end up deciding what number comes up at the end. Now, as you can see on screen now, every key event that happens in the game, throw-ins, goals, goal kicks, red cards, they spin the wheel so that it ends on one final number. And then if you match that final number at the end, you win a cash prize. And if you manage to match that number for all 5 games, then you will be a millionaire. Sounds all right to me. Now, of course, do be gamble aware. This is a game that requires you to put some funds in, and therefore it is a gambling game. So if you feel as though that you are at risk, if you're betting or gambling more than you can afford, please do visit begambleaware.org.uk because it's really important you keep on top. Now, for this game, if you join with our link that's in the description, or you sign up using the code the SU Way, that's all capital letters, the SU Way, you will get a free first game. Now, Jimmy, on to our predictions, and I think this one could be my most controversial of the game week. I've gone quite big for Spurs.
You have.
And it's a difficult one. It's a difficult one because, you know, Spurs haven't got a great record in recent times against Man United. They've not beat them since that incredible 6-1 victory during the COVID season. But I've let my head rule my heart again. You know, I've just talked about how much I was impressed by Wolves, how much I've gone high on Wolves because of their performance at Old Trafford. And I've gone down on Man U because of that exact same game. They were lucky to come away with 3 points. They gave up 2.35 XG. They gave away 23 shots. Wolves hit the post. Wolves should have had a penalty. That, to me, is not a great sign for the start to the season for Man United. Spurs, meanwhile, they've lost Kane, but I think they really want to put down a marker for the season. This is the kind of game, Manchester United at home, that's when you settle how good you're going to be for a season. And I think Spurs are going to really want to send a message. What are you thinking? Why have you sort of gone for the nice high score draw?
Yeah, I've gone for a Desmond again. Man United, my thought process behind this was you look at their team man for man against Wolves, and I don't think there's any of them, very few that you'd have swapped for a Wolves player. So they've underperformed massively for me there. And I think it'll have spooked them a little bit, and they realise that they have to, you know, if they're going to make a go of it this season, they can't be dropping points. They were very lucky against Wolves. I think we'd all acknowledge that in terms of getting out with a win. So yeah, I think they're going to bring it. I like Postecoglou. I think he'll get it right, and I think Spurs will be a threat this season. So yeah, I don't think they'll have enough necessarily to beat Man U, but I don't fancy Man U turning up to Spurs and turning them over either. So 2-2, sitting on fence with that one.
No, I get it. And I've joined you because my next one is a Desmond myself. Manchester City against Newcastle. I've gone for the Desmond in this one. I've sat on the fence because for me, Newcastle were the most impressive team by an absolute mile from game week 1. I thought Villa would be great this season and they got absolutely done. Now tell me, how good were Newcastle and how did this happen? Because I just don't understand.
I don't get it either, mate, to be honest. And maybe I'm doing them a big disservice with this, but I just think City are elite. And I think they're a level above everybody else in the league. So don't be surprised if nearly every game you see City to 0 or City to 1, because that's just the obvious pick, isn't it? I can't have them as a banker every week. And these sort of games, you wouldn't necessarily want them as a banker because Newcastle can turn up and do damage to anybody. From what I hear, and I've only seen the highlights, the Newcastle Villa game was not a 5-1. It was Newcastle taking the chances, Villa spurning their chances. So, and which is more akin to what we were saying before the game, that they'll be fairly even and it'll probably just go one of either way. So I do expect City to have enough to beat Newcastle, but it wouldn't surprise me at all if City drop points here, whether that's a draw. I don't think they'll lose, but if your score came up, I wouldn't be absolutely shocked, by no means.
No, exactly that. And I think, I don't think they'll lose at the Etihad. Let's be honest. I don't think City ever lose at the Etihad. But I just think this is a really tough game. I think Newcastle started so well that I'm being reactive and I'm going with what happened in game week 1 rather than maybe what I think more generally about the teams. And I will put my teeth back in a second so that I can finish sentences without losing my mind.
De Bruyne are out for 4 months. Huge that for City.
It'd be interesting to
So,
see what that does. Obviously, does that mean that McAtee's got a chance? Obviously, Bernardo looks like signing a new deal. I know they're in for Paqueta, and hopefully that would make a difference.
yeah.
That might mean that McAtee is available. But yeah, there's a couple of question marks for me at City. But my analysis of the Villa game against Newcastle last week comes in the next one, because Villa have got Everton. I think they are going to finally get off the mark. I think they're going to get a good home win. But here's what I thought about the game last week. It's that Villa's high line was just so weak. It got exploited time and time again. Now, according to FOTMob, Newcastle had 9 big chances in that game. They created an XG of 3.4. Now, that is just ridiculous for a Premier League game of football. I think if Everton can get some pace in their team, they've got it. If they can actually find a way to get their strikers capable of finishing their dinner, there are goals in this game for Everton. The risk, of course, is that their strikers can't finish their dinner, couldn't hit a barn door, as the old saying goes. And so it's really, really difficult for me to predict them to win this game of football. I don't think Everton as well have got enough to keep Villa out at the other end. So I think Villa will kickstart their season. But I think this could be low-key the most entertaining game of the weekend, because I really think there's a chance that with Villa's high line, you see some real end-to-end football and then really getting punished in behind. You're obviously a bit more confident about Villa, or shall I say bullish against Everton?
Yeah, and our family's got quite an affinity to Everton because my dad worked for him for so long as a scout. But I can't see, like you said, you've summed it up for me really. They can't finish the dinner at the minute, and I don't wish any ill on them other than them finishing below Sheff United this season.
Hey.
But I just cannot see where the goals are coming from in Everton's team at the minute. It's just ridiculous in terms of the talent and the money they've spent on that squad. And Villa will definitely get it right because they've invested well. They've done so, like a lot of smart recruitment. I know we were both big fans when we were talking about them last week.
Yeah.
They will click at some stage. I might have gone too early, but I think Villa come good, and I think Everton are off to a bad start for the season.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I am a little bit worried about Everton. They've got to get a striker in through the door, surely, because obviously we saw last week, it's not that they weren't creating chances, but relying on Morpay, it's just not happening for them.
Cameron Archer, don't be mentioning that when we're in for Cameron Archer.
No, God.
Come on.
You've tempted fate. We've now got it in the comments. Yeah. I mean, let's not.
Let's move on. Next one.
West Ham against Chelsea. This is the game that really matters. There's nothing else that needs talking about on that sense. And so for me, this one's just the overarching feeling is, how many players do Chelsea need? Like, I can't understand what's happening. Like, obviously the signing of Caicedo, okay, he's an excellent player. I understand why they've gone in for him and why they've paid the massive money that they have. But then Lavia? Why? Just to annoy Liverpool, maybe? I mean, that's as good a reason as any, but
that's why.
Ugachukwu, they've just brought him in for the summer. Where does he now fit?
Ugachukwu?
Yeah.
Is that what it's called?
Him over the summer. Yeah, it is.
I thought you were going for Chukwuemeka.
No, I was going about Ugachukwu. They signed him over the summer.
Mate,
new DM that they've got. Oh,
never heard of him, mate.
For a minute then, I thought I was in trouble. But what I was going to say is that actually, Chukwuemeka and Conor Gallagher started against Liverpool. They're two good players. I've got nothing against them. There were some rumours about Chukwuemeka coming to United on loan, and I'd be really excited by that. I think that'd be a fantastic opportunity. But if you're spending £1 billion, like they've spent £1 billion, and you're starting with Chukwuemeka and Conor Gallagher in centre midfield, I really feel as though there's something going wrong with what they're doing. Because for that amount of money, they should be competing right at the top of the game, and they're just nowhere near that level. Now, I do think they'll win this game. Obviously, we've both gone for Chelsea wins away from home. That's a really positive win, but they should win games like this. What's troubling for me is that I don't think they can be trusted to do it consistently. I've predicted the win, but I don't massively believe in it, if I'm being honest. I've gone more off the fact that they should win it rather than I'm certain that they will.
Yeah, I know what you're saying. I mean, the business last season was awful. The best centre back now will be somebody who's come from their own youth academy. They've spent massive money on Caicedo, who will now be probably the main man in midfield.
Surely.
And I think is it Jackson or Nkunku that's been injured? One of them's injured. So
Nkunku's injured.
Yeah, so Jackson is up front from that spine now. looks very healthy for Chelsea.
Oh.
But yeah, I know. So I think, and adding in the Poch factor, and I do rate Poch, I think they'll come good, and I think they'll be a lot better than they were last season. I rate the business more this season than I do last season, even though it's an awful lot of money to spend, and I don't get the Lavia signing. But Enzo and Caicedo in the middle, I don't think you can get much of a better pair in it league, to be honest, at the minute. And I fancy them to come and beat a West Ham side that are still in transition, really, and still trying to find their feet following Declan moving on. And they're going to be an interesting team to watch. Because they could go up, or they could quite easily be involved with United down at the scruffy end of the table.
I still have a bit nightmares about the last time that happened, but we'll not get into that one right now. I think the main thing for me with West Ham is all about when Europe starts. You know, once they're in the Europa League, once they've got games on the Thursday night, how does that affect their squad? You know, we've not seen masses of recruitment or them really strengthening through the summer. They've still only made, I think they have confirmed a couple now, but it's not many signings. And so they've really got some work to do to build that squad together, particularly to replace Declan Rice. So the last game of the weekend, of course, there are only 9 games because Luton against Burnley has had to be postponed as a result of Luton's ground not being ready to start the season. Why they're not just playing it at Burnley, I don't know. Why the ground isn't ready, I also don't know, but that's out of my pay grade and somebody else's problem. So Palace against Arsenal. I've gone for a draw. You've gone for a comfortable Arsenal win. You walk me through the sensible option and I'll give you the idiot's perspective.
I didn't think Palace were all that when they came to the Lane, if I'm honest. I don't think they're the finished article by any means. No. I think they're an okay Premier League side, and we just weren't ready for them. We didn't have the quality to live with them. It were all Palace, and we were a mediocre Championship side that we put out at that time. We won't be going after the window closes. I'm comfortable that we'll be a good side going forward. But in terms of Palace, they didn't overly impress me. I think they've got a lot of big athletes in the team who went down whenever they were blown on. And I don't rate it. I don't rate it. And Arsenal, I expect to be up there challenging again for second spot because nobody's finishing above City. But I fancy Arsenal and Liverpool to be fighting out for that second spot. Arsenal have done some good business again. And I can't see past them winning at Palace here. I just can't see it. I'm surprised at your result, or your prediction, mate, if I'm honest.
Yeah, it's a difficult one. It is a bit controversial. I think what I've tried to do here is I thought Arsenal were poor against Forest. Let me just get that out there. You know, again, getting my stats from FOTMob, they've lost the XG. According to FOTMob, they've conceded 2 big chances and not actually created a big chance themselves. All of that despite dominating possession and having 78% of the ball. Now, that implies to me that Arsenal have dominated the game. Forest have sat in their block. They've tried to get out and get them on the break, and they've been quite successful in creating chances. Now, that's exactly the game plan that Palace want. Palace are 100% going to sit in. They're going to try to frustrate Arsenal, and then they're going to use their quick plays. Their players like Eze, as much as I agree that Palace weren't that special at Bramall Lane, I thought Eze was absolutely outstanding. I thought he was really good. And so he's more than capable of creating chances for them in a game like this. And so if Arsenal don't turn up, or if they put in a similar performance to what they gave against Forest, I think there's a chance they do fall short and that this is a potential banana skin. And so that's really difficult for me. And that's why I've gone for the score that I've gone for. I just think there's a little bit of risk to Arsenal. I think the loss of Timber could also potentially be huge. I think they really, him doing his ACL, potentially missing the season now, that's a huge loss after being a big signing for them in the summer. So it's controversial, but that's where I stand. And that, of course, brings us to the end of the weekend.
Yeah, no guts, no glory, mate, with that last one. Fair play to you, mate.
Tell me about it. So now that we've given you our predictions, please make sure you give us your predictions in the comments. Now, I've saved this till the end because I want to embarrass one of our regular viewers, Sharon Richardson. Now, some of you may have been on YouTube in the last week. You may have commented under our last video, and she may have responded to you asking you for your banker, because what she's been doing for us this season is really kindly going through the comments and collecting all of our viewer scores, as well as tallying up for me and for Jimmy. And therefore, I think it's only fair that we give her a huge shout out. We refer to her as Shazbat on the channel because she runs her own business, Shazbat Designs. Now, I think she deserves it because she does loads for our channel. I'm sure she's a mummy.
She is, yeah. Thank you, Shazbat. It's really appreciated. In fact, I think Nick said he was going to put you on payroll for doing this. So thank you very much. It's much appreciated.
Yeah, she does a fantastic job. So if you are looking for some fantastic pyrography, so Shaz is a pyrographer, and for any kinds of ornaments, for jewelry, for clocks, for gifts, if you want to look for something specific for your wedding or just something bespoke for yourself at home, do go and give her a look because what she does really is incredible. So that's Shazbat Designs.
Great.
She's got a website and she's also on Twitter. Please do reach out because she's a fantastic friend of the channel and she really does deserve it for the great work she's doing with us. Thank you.
And a massive blade. Massive blade. Go on, Shaz.
Thank you very much for joining us this week. Please do put your predictions in the comments under this video and Shaz will be collecting them for us and I may be giving you a shout out next week if you manage to be our viewers champion. Thanks again for joining us. Thank you for your time, Jimmy.
Cheers, mate. Thanks for having me again.
No
Up the blades.
See you later, everybody.